All right. So before I begin on I'm going to address two questions that were asked to me or to the
Avant de
profile,
continuer, je vais essayer
the
de
coaches
répondre à deux
clinic here, and
questions
I'm going to answer those before I go into
qui
my
ont
presentation today. I forget who asked the question, but they wanted to know the difference between a friendly game and a match in terms of instilling confidence in the younger players. How you as coaches can address the issue of confidence with younger players who might not be very skilled yet. So his question was how to build that confidence. So I have a few suggestions. And again, this Zoom call will be recorded and available on the website. So you don't necessarily need to write everything down, but you can always reference our website and our YouTube channel to get this information. So the first thing is positive reinforcement, celebrating small victories. So where maybe he couldn't do a particular drill, but then, as time goes on, he's able to do it, to celebrate that with high fives and just subtle little encouraging type of things, no matter how small it is. Positive feedback is one thing. Another thing is setting very achievable goals, short-term goals.
I get you, sir. Get you.
That would really help as far as getting them to see the big picture, but it's what they do today and what goals they reach in a short term that can help them to see that they're building blocks towards something bigger, which is a much more skilled, developed, and highly capable basketball player. Achieving those goals give them a sense of accomplishment and boost their confidence. Another thing is encouraging self-belief. So teaching them to believe in their own abilities, share stories of athletes, with your former players who weren't very good when they started. There's a lot of no one's really good when they start, right? They might be tall or good athlete, but as far as in the beginning, they all had to overcome some challenges to succeed through their hard work. And so I think sharing any stories you might have, whether you have them personally with your academy or your school or your even on the internet, you can find those things available to share with your players. Another one is offering not just supportive feedback, but constructive. So everybody wants to learn. Every kid, every boy, girl embraces the learning process. Whether they may push back or not is always because of what their friends may think around them. But if you can encourage them, but through actually being a detailed teacher and not so aggressive in your teaching, sometime you'll have to adjust your strategy player by player by player. You can't just put them all in one box and coach them all the same. You have to know that this one's maybe a little more raw, a little more new at the game. This one is more advanced. You could be a little more demanding. You have a stronger relationship with them. So you need to be able to recognize differences in how you encourage them, how you teach them, and in terms of the constructive feedback. I think introducing role models and mentorship and mentors who can inspire them and guide them. They could be local athletes or coaches or even a successful individual in their village or their community that can offer up positive feedback to them separate from you as a coach to keep them on the straight and narrow path of development. And then the last thing I would say for inspiration and things like that is encouraging self-belief. This is a very important one, that teaching them how to believe in their own abilities. You have to, like I said earlier, teaching them about other players that have done it before them through hard work, fostering a positive, supportive culture with the team. You got to remember, this is not an individual sport. So there's value and rewards to being on the team, right? We had a player that was at M Square who had to leave us for reasons I won't get into, but he really misses us. And every time I come into town, he'll still come back to visit and say hi, and he's no longer with us because of some technicalities. But he embraced being a part of our team. And so when you have someone that's belonging to something bigger than them, it keeps them going. Their teammates can keep them going and encourage them. So those are all good ways to motivate and keep younger players inspired. And that was the question on how to do that. Another question that came to us was, with limited practice time, a lot of you guys don't have a lot of time to work with the kids because they're in school. You may only get them once or twice a week and then have to play games. So there's a lot of things that you can do to help their development when you're not with them, right? So one of the things is their drills, teaching them simple drills. If they have a ball, obviously you can teach them drills that they can do ball handling drills and passing drills with a wall or with a friend. If they don't have a ball, there's still a lot of things that they can do to focus on their skill set. You know, for example, the defensive positioning and slides and different types of conditioning things and fitness things that don't require any tools or equipment. Like, there's so much you can do. I've seen a lot of creative things. That's one thing my West African brothers and sisters do not lack for creativity. So I see a lot of those things, and those are all great ways. It doesn't always have to be this big shiny equipment. It's how it affects their development at the end of the day. The other thing that you can do when they're not with you is apply. Make sure there's a fun element to the creative things that you're giving them. That helps to keep them engaged in their early part of their journey as far as basketball is concerned, especially the younger players. It'll help to keep them engaged until they get a little bit better, and then they fall in love with the progress and the process. Regular check-ins with them, even if it's just a quick call or a quick text. How did your workout go today? You can send it in a group thread to all of your players when you don't have practice. You know, it might be a video call. It might be something sent on social media. A lot of inspirational stories, as we talked about earlier, for trying to gain confidence. These are things that you can share with your players when they're not with you. It's a good way to keep them engaged. The other thing is, and we talked about this earlier as well, having set personal goals and tracks for them. So there's team goals, and then there's personal goals. So if you look at some of the things that Coach Cox gave you, you can give them very specific things you want them to do when they're not with you. The other thing that you can do, and I know this is a lot, but I'll actually maybe put this on the site as well, is provide them with some type of whether it's a phone. If they don't have a phone, then where they can keep notes. It could be just a little workbook or a little handout with diagrams and tips for exercise and so forth. They need to have instruction even when you're not there. They need to have a plan. They need to be given direction, and you don't have to be with them to give them that. And what you'll find out is who really loves basketball, who is really ready and wanting to invest in their own development and their own growth. When you give these things to players, you'll find out, oh, this guy or girl did everything I asked and did some extra. And this one, they didn't get around to it. They had to do work. And said, that's okay. But you get a better understanding of who you're dealing with and their upside, their potential, so to speak. I do think the quick videos and some of the things that we share on the clinic, you should share with them directly. It doesn't always have to come from you teaching them. You can share it with them and then discuss it when you have your practice. And then the last thing is being very well planned and concise about what you do when you're with them. You don't want to waste time if you only have them for a short amount of time. You want to make sure you have your practice plan laid out. You want to make sure that you're covering the things that are going to help them in their growth. I do think going into different what they call stations is really good. If you have 10, 12, 15 kids or more, giving them station work, they can get more reps in. Let me explain that. So let's say you have an assistant coach with you, or two assistants, or some older players that can help. You might have a dribbling station. You might have a passing station. You might have a shooting station. You might have a read the defense station. Now, what is that? How does that help? Well, you have short amount of time. So if you do a layup drill for the whole team, well, they might get one layup in every 45 seconds or every minute. But if you have 4 stations and then you rotate the stations every 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever it is, now they're getting more reps at learning, and they're using their time more valuable. Is that if that makes sense? Okay, those were the 2 questions. Those were my 2 answers. I think what I'll do is I'll send those to Gary and have them put those on the website or on the YouTube channel, because I know I gave you a lot of examples, and I don't expect you to remember all of that off the top of your head. At least I know I couldn't. I'm not that smart. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to talk about some of the principles, the core principles that I feel West African players need to embrace and know, whether they stay in Africa and play in ball, whether they go to university and play, whether they go to Europe, Spain, America, wherever it might be. These are things, as they progress in their basketball journeys, they have to know. So let me share my screen with you real fast, and I'm going to open up a PowerPoint that I'm just going to talk you through real fast. Okay, Gary, can you see everything okay?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. All right. So the first thing is...
Yeah, I can see from here.
Okay, good. All right. So the first thing is, these are general concepts to make sure your players, you got to make sure they embrace these concepts. These are very important. And as I think about my players that have come over from M Squared, where they were weak and where they had areas they were behind, this is some of those things that we can teach your younger players now. So the first thing is STBPYM. What does that mean? That means you need to see the ball, and that should be play your man. No, I'm sorry, I put player your man. It should be play your man. I'll fix that on the website. So it's see the ball, meaning you want to be able to see what the ball is doing, but you have to also play your man at the same time, right? You got to be able to see man and ball. You've heard that before. But actually, Gary, can I fix this right now? Let me do that real fast, because I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right terminology on this, and I don't think it is correct. You know what? I'll fix it later. I'll fix it later and send it to you. But before I start this one, so seeing the ball, but playing your man is also the same as see your man, but play the ball, right? So which one is more important? The ball is always a little bit more important, because your man, you have to be able to adjust defensively, like the shell drill we talked about. But what is the ball doing? WITBD. What is the ball doing?
Share your screen again, Marv.
Oh, it's not shared? My fault. Hold on. Hold on, man. I got to exit this and then go to... My apologies. Hold on.
There you go.
All right, my fault. That's why I got you here, Gary. All right. So we talked about the general concepts. We talked about see the ball, but play your man and what that means. We talked about this next one is what is the ball doing? Okay, so this is a little tricky, but the West African kids don't always really get this. I have to teach them this when they get to the U.S. So I'd rather have them learn this now in West Africa. So what is the ball doing? Okay, so what does that mean? When you're seeing the ball, or you're seeing your man and you're playing the ball, or you're seeing the ball, the bottom line is, what is he doing? Does he have the ball over his head? Does he look like he's about to pass? Does he look like he's about to shoot? Or she? Do they look like they're about to dribble? That is the indicator for you of where you should be standing. You have to read and anticipate. You have to anticipate the ball. And you can't do that unless you know what the ball is doing. So say, for example, a player has the ball, he's holding it over his head. Well, he can only do one thing. He can only pass it. So you can cheat the pass or cheat the passing lane or the skip pass when the ball is high. What if he brings it down? Well, now he might have it on his hip and he's about to dribble. Well, now you can be quick to the help position or dig on the ball, or be, if you're guarding a shooter, be quick to recover and be there on the catch. But if you don't read the ball, you're not going to be a great defender. Okay. And that's a critical piece. Here goes the next thing. And I really, really want you guys to follow me on this one. MTBU. What does that mean? And all of my players know all of these acronyms. So MTBU is make the ball uncomfortable. Okay. How do you do that? Well, it's not just the person guarding the ball. It's not just the person who is one-on-one with the ball. Another way to make the ball uncomfortable is stunts. I'm not sure if you guys know what a stunt is, but if you're in the gap, you put that hand and you jab your hand and your foot, even though you're not going to help, you're not going to trap, but you're making the ball uncomfortable. You're making the person that has the ball think about you, even though you might not be guarding the ball. Talking is making the ball uncomfortable. If you're actually on the ball, some great things to do is know your comfort level of keeping them in front. So how do you do that? Well, you got to know your quickness and who you're guarding. But you have to have a lot of hand activity, talking, just really make them think about you rather than just reacting to them. I'll say that again. You want the ball to be thinking about you instead of you just reacting to what the ball does. So hopefully that's clear. KIF. This is another one that is a very, very important aspect of defense. Keep in front. You have to always, it's so simple, right? It's so simple. But so many times your footwork is bad and you open up your stance or you overplay somebody or you get too close into them. That's what I call the sweet spot. You got to know where your sweet spot is. But if you can't keep a player in front, you're a bad defender. The bottom line is there are always going to be some players that can end up driving. And then it's a team concept to how you help and recover and rotate. But if you as an individual defender can keep your man in front of you, then you are helping your teammates. Okay. Now I'm going to go a step further on this. Actually, I'll wait until the next Zoom because there's a lot of details that go to keeping the ball in front. It's a very simple concept, but power steps, power slides, defensive slides, whatever you call them in your regions, that's critical. Your first step or two has to be a push step. It can't be a lean your body into the direction. You have to push off the opposite foot of the direction that the player is going. So I'll say that again. If I'm facing you and you're going to my right, I have to push off of my left foot. You have to train your players. That's their first motion. Now, if they have to open up and to keep them in front later, yes, that's fine. But your very first motion is a push step to keep them in front, okay, with a hand in that passing lane. Okay, the next one is KYP. KYP. All of my players know that KYP is. Now, this is a little more advanced, and it's a little more important in America or Europe, but we need to learn it now. And that is know your personnel. Now, that's on both sides. Know your teammates, but also if you do scouting, know who you're guarding. So as a coach, it's your responsibility to share with your team what this player's basketball traits are. So let's say he's a horrible shooter, or she's a bad shooter. Well, then you don't want to climb into them and get close to them so they can drive you, which is going to their strengths. You want to give them a little more distance. That's knowing your personnel. Let's say that person is a really excellent deep shooter. Well, now that you know that, you've got to get a little bit closer. You still got to get in your sweet spot, but you've got to always close out with a high hand and challenge high. You don't want to go from A to B when you jump. You want to jump at A and you want to land at A. So you're totally vertical when you contest a shot. We've covered that with Coach Zev, talked about that before, challenging shots, if you need to look that up. But all of that applies to making you a better defensive team and a better defensive player. So knowing your personnel, keeping in front, seeing the ball, playing your man, or vice versa, making the ball uncomfortable. These are all things that have to be learned while they're there in West Africa before they get to the U.S. It will make them much more ready to perform at a higher level. So I'm going to open it up now for some questions. I will tell you guys that the stuff I just shared with you is common problems for West African players when they get to the U.S. There's other issues. We're not going to cover everything today, but conceptual play, how fast they play. For example, when you guys do ball handling drills, they've got to learn how to do them quicker and lower. All of the clips I see from some of your academies, they're doing drills. And they're learning the drills, they're learning the skills, but don't be scared to turn it over. Don't be scared to lose the ball. That's how you get the improvement. But they have to dribble much lower. So anyway, let me see if there's any other questions right now. And let me check the chat. There seems to be.
Yes. Coach, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Coach.
Okay. When you're talking about knowing your personnel, the KYP. Now, do this imply knowing your opponent's strength? By either watching videos of this opponent, so what if you are not opportune to have a video of this opponent you're facing? How do you know this personnel in terms of the game situation?
Right. That's a very good question. So you guys do not always have the luxury to scout your team, right? But in most regions, at least where we have our academy in Lagos, you play friendly games, right? So you play friendly games. You might have a match that was a part of a tournament. And if you don't have a chance to see a player before to give a scout to your team, you have to watch during the course of the game and say, a guy has hit, let's say 2 3-pointers. Well, there's probably a pretty good chance he's a shooter, right? So you have to talk to your team during the game and say, you can't just get upset because he made the 3. You have to instruct. You have to teach. You are all not coaches. You are all teachers. So even sometimes it has to happen as we say, on the fly or concurrently or during the game. Now, you might not know your personnel before the game, but by halftime, you should be able to say, hey, he's a good driver. Give him a little more space, and then you go from there. Gary, did you have a question?
I was going to make a comment. Also, if you have the opportunity to record these players on your phone so that you can start to collect some scouting information, you should probably do that too, so that the next time you see him, you have something to reference.
Yeah. It's always difficult and a challenge in West Africa because of the lack of technology and resources, of maybe not enough staff to help you. We're very blessed to have 3 coaches and a director of operations, a video person with us at M Squared, but not everybody has that many coaches. But your assistant coach can go to a game and you can send them ahead of time. You know that they're playing a friendly game somewhere, or you have them go and watch, sit in the stands and make notes if they don't have a phone. This person is good at this. This person's good, very good defender. This, whatever traits, basketball trait. Me, whose name is Morris. And Morris is a very good ball handler, but as well as a good shooter. So what we do, we identify those players by categories. So a player is either a 1, which is a shooter, like call him, he's a Curry, a Seth Curry, or 2, he's a driver, and he's a very good driver, and that's his strength. No, I'm sorry. 2 is he can do both, and 3 is he's a driver. So 1 is a shooter, 2 he can do both, and 3 he is a driver only. So you have different defensive principles to guard each one. So a 1 is obvious, right? You have to be there on the catch and you got to close with a hand up and all of those things. A 3 is easy, right? You just have to give him a little more space and be ready to keep him in front, right? But a 2 is a little more difficult. Those are the most difficult players to guard. So you have to have more activity on a 2. You can't let him be comfortable and read your footwork and read your hands and activity. So you guard 2s have to be guarded with more motion, with more energy. You're in, you're out. We said we pop in, we pop back. You change your feet. Your feet are very active. So you can't let him read you, because if he can read you and he's good at both, then you're dead. The first thing you want to take away is his shot, if you know he can do both. So you always have to close with a high hand and close with him with an angle to try to make him go towards the baseline, because that's where all your help is. If good players drive to the middle, that's not good because now you're forcing rotations. But you want to make superior players drive towards the baseline, and then you can get your help and your rotations over. So your angle of your closeout, the activity, you take away the shot first, and then you pop in and pop back, and you stay active and not let him read you. When he goes to drive, it's a retreat step and then left to right. Okay. But the better players in the world and better players in high school and wherever are gonna be guarded. They're gonna make shots. You just have to try to limit their shots. And the last thing I would say is limit their attempts. So someone that's really, really good, they can shoot it, they can bounce it. We try to guard them and do our work early. We try to limit their ability to even catch it. So you might go up and deny that player. Let's say the ball is centered and they're on one of the wings, right? We would have our defensive player go out and put a hand in the passing lane. We say grab the rope, put a hand in the passing lane, and discourage a comfortable pass to him. It's not a full denial. Now, if he's made a few shots, then yes, maybe you will full deny him. But you limit his touches through how you guard him before he even gets the ball, if he's that good. Okay. Hopefully that'll help to answer the question, Babatunde. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, you like that? I see you clapping, my man. Let me see what else. Any other questions, you guys? Nothing else on that stuff? Okay.
Hey, Marv,
Yes.
real quick, I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Okay.
So what I wanted to do was, I know a couple of you guys had questions about the website. So in terms of unable to see your screen.
Oh, did I stop? Did I stop sharing?
Yeah, you did something.
Hold on. It said this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Who could share? Host only.
Yeah.
Who could? Okay. Try it now, Gary.
Okay. There we go. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So on the website, from the homepage, there's a section or a page called Coaching Clinics. And after each meeting, I post the actual details, and you can click on the read more to see the details of that clinic. But also I created a section previously about specific highlights, things like tips. So for example, like the stuff that Marvin was talking about with his presentation, I might put here, but it has some of the tips about how to create a highlight reel, how to do what should be in your basketball resume, those types of things. So that particular page is what we're talking about when you go and look. On your mobile phone, on the right-hand side of the screen here, in mobile phone, you'll see this little, what's called a hamburger menu on the mobile. And that allows you to click on the different pages to go to where we're at right now, to the coaching page, and you'll see the same thing. So not everybody knows how to. I've seen a couple questions about how to navigate that website. And so in this, from the last one, for example, here you'll see the videos of the things that we presented, along with, a summary of what we talked about in a particular meeting. So I just want to kind of highlight that so that if people don't have any problems and understand what we're talking about when we talk about going to the website.